They say that every pilgrimage is inspired by revelation. Wild is the true story of Cheryl Strayed's epic hike along the Pacific Crest Trail, with an Academy Award-nominated performance by Reese Witherspoon. Between Christmas 2014 and the new year, my daughter, Isla, and I saw the movie, and the experience inspired me to research long-distance hikes in Scotland, my home country. The Scottish National Trail, devised by Cameron McNeish, appeared after a quick internet search, and immediately I was hooked. My mother Muriel died 2 years ago on Memorial Day, so I decided to use the walk to raise money for Maggie's Centre in Edinburgh, a cancer support charity who helped my mother endure her own bravely fought battle with cancer. After a long absence, I hit the gym in January, giving myself 4 months to get fit. I was ably helped in this endeavour by personal trainer and bootcamp instructor Devin Bernier, as well as an athletic massage specialist and healthy living guru Evan Love. So in May 2015, I flew from my hometown of Austin, Texas, to Edinburgh, the town where I grew up, all set to walk the first half of the Scottish National Trail from Kirk, Yetholm to Kinussie. I was lucky to have many friends join me on the walk. Nigel Ross, a longtime friend from high school, agreed to walk the first stages of the trail from Kirk Yetholm to Edinburgh. Our last outing was climbing Ben Lomond on May 22, 1988, before careers and families intervened. On Sunday, May 10th, Warren Scott, another good friend, drove us down from Edinburgh to the picturesque village of Kirk Yetholm and the start of the Scottish National Trail at the Border Hotel. There we enjoyed their delicious carvery for lunch before Warren returned home to Dalkeith. Recovering from jet lag and planning to begin our hike the following day, Nigel and I had time in hand for some local sightseeing, including walking the 1.5 miles from the village to the border. After posing for a few photo ops, we took in the sights of Yetholm Kirk before wandering over to Town Yetholm for a pre-hike dinner and refreshments. The Walk Highlands Guide was by far the best resource in planning for the Scottish National Trail. I used their maps and route descriptions throughout my journey. The farmhouse at Yetholm Mill, run by Marilyn and John Bridger, was our first night's accommodation. After a full Scottish breakfast, we set out bright and early on Monday morning, following the St Cuthbert's Way on the 17.5-mile first leg of the Scottish National Trail. Walking up the stone dyke ridge of Crookachaw's Hill afforded superb views looking back over the Yetholms in the south, with the range of the Cheviot Hills stretching out west. We soon reached the summit of a blustery, wide-open hill, certainly living up to its literal name.
Beautiful day, a bit windy, but can't believe the sunshine. We're heading off to Moorebattle, so
After descending the hills and crossing the Kale Water footbridge, we headed into Moorebattle, where we met Richard and Margaret Peterson, a remarkable couple who run the St Cuthbert's coffee shop, located in a caravan in front of St Aidan's Church. Richard and Margaret spent their life savings to renovate St Aidan's, but it was Margaret's harrowing story of her personal battle with cancer that really hit home. Listening as the details of her epic struggle unfolded, what impressed me the most was the profound sense of peace and calm with which Margaret communicated her near-death experiences. When she discovered I was hiking the Scottish National Trail in support of Maggie's Centre, Margaret walked over to a shelf with a brown shoebox, reached in and handed me a £20 note, asking if I would please accept her donation to my fundraising campaign. I was dumbfounded and truly grateful to realise, on the very first day of the hike, the chance meeting with Richard and Margaret had already fulfilled the purpose of my journey. After meeting Richard and Margaret, walking through Moorebattle was a surreal experience. A little further beyond Moorebattle, on the St Cuthbert's Way, lies the remains of Cessford Castle, a 15th century fortress with both a dramatic history and a dramatic aspect. Leaving the castle, the trail becomes beautiful mixed walking between fields and through picturesque woodland. Late in the afternoon, we finally reached Monteviot Suspension Footbridge across Teviot Water, but a few more miles remained to Ancrum and our accommodation at the St Cuthbert's Barn. A converted weaver's shed, the barn sits literally in the middle of Ancrum village, and as you can see, is quite luxuriously appointed. Our first day's hike on the Scottish National Trail concluded with a sampling of local Ancrum fare. Day 2, Tuesday morning, took us from Hairstains to Melrose and began in brilliant sunshine. A short walk back to Hairstains from Ancrum, we met up with David Malkin, a friend joining us for this stage of the trail. Only later in the day did David reveal it was his birthday. The Roman road Deer Street dominates the early part of this stage, a straight arrow of a byway through the heart of the Borders. Maiden Lilliard's monument is soon encountered with her wonderful legend engraved in stone. Her tall tale is an entertaining sample of larger-than-life Scottish Borders mythology. Maxton Kirk sits just above the mighty River Tweed, and above the river sits the Crystal Well, which used to pump fresh water to the nearby Benrig House, according to the guide. But it's the Eildon Hills that define the landscape during the next few stages of the walk. Pausing briefly for a rest stop in Bowden, we climbed through broad wood to eventually bisect the Eildons and walked down to the market town of Melrose on the far side. At this point, David had just about evangelised Nigel into accepting the virtues of trekking poles. We reached Melrose Abbey 30 minutes before closing, so a quick tour seemed like a fitting end to 2 days walking the St Cuthbert's Way. Highlights of the abbey include the bagpipe-playing pig, as well as the burial spot of King Robert the Bruce's heart. While David made his way back to Edinburgh, Nigel and I had been invited to spend the evening with Charlotte and Hugh Chalmers in Lauder, a small town 26 miles south of Edinburgh. I know Hugh and Charlotte from our undergraduate days as members of the Edinburgh University Mountaineering Club, but had not seen them for about 3 decades. We had a great evening eating Hugh's venison stew and catching up over the exciting developments and recent events in Scottish politics. On Wednesday morning, day 3, Hugh drove us back to the market centre in Melrose at the start of the Southern Upland Way, heading west to Traquair via Galashiels. We passed by historical Skirmish Hill, now populated by Highland cattle, before heading along the wooded riverbanks towards Abbotsford, deep into Walter Scott country. After extricating ourselves from Galashiels because of a detour, we enjoyed the view back to town from Hog Hill Cairn.
Bit of a hike up to the cairn, our nice little cairn we have. View over the fairly unlovely Galashiels.
Indeed.
But otherwise a decent day.
An interesting day so far. Got a little bit lost in Galashiels, but managed to get back on the Southern Upland Way today. We finished St Cuthbert's yesterday in Melrose, and it's not bad. It's a little grey, but we have Minch Moor, which we've heard a lot about from various people, so it seems like a bit of a hike before we get to Traquair today. So, dropping down past Fernylee Farm, we encountered, for me, the essence of the Scottish Borders. A stand with eggs for sale, just drop your money in the jar, and the beautiful stone Yare Bridge over the River Tweed. On the summit of Yare Hill, after a long steep climb through a forestry plantation, Nigel began to consider his options, with the 3 brethren looking on. Well, here we are at the top of the 3 brethren. Is this Hog Hill? No, this is not. Nigel made it, eventually climbed about 1,000 feet.
You're dead right, we did.
That was knackering. So anyway, here we are, and we are looking back. If you see yesterday, there's the Eildons. You see the sign for the Southern Upland Way pointing us in this direction, so we're heading over there, this is called Minchmoor. So a great view of the whole Borders region, and these are the three brethren, three large cairns at the top, and Nigel has just collapsed. Yare Hill is a superb viewpoint, especially looking back to the Eildons in the south, and then over to Minchmoor along a broad ridge to the west. After the long boggy traverse of Minchmoor, it was really time for a break. There are many points of interest beyond Minchmoor. For example, the guidebook states of the Cheese Well. It is thought that travellers once left cheese or food here as luck for their journey. So we left a pound coin instead. Another point of interest along the way is this art installation, Point of Resolution, cut into the heather by Charles Poulsen. Not to mention an elaborate horse memorial in the Traquair forest. Descending from Minchmoor, we enjoyed great views of the Tweed River Valley over Traquair and across to Innerleithen, our final destination for the day. At the end of the trail, we hiked an additional 2 miles along the road into town to the Traquair Arms Hotel, ready to finish another long day with a hearty dinner. Day 4's plan combined 2 stages, Innerleithen to Peebles, then northwest on to the village of West Linton. But first, another full Scottish breakfast, enjoyed at the Traquair Arms Hotel. The entrance to the Tweed Valley Railway path lay just around the corner from the hotel, so we used the path as our access point to the Scottish National Trail, passing the Ishiels Community Woodland on our way to Cardrona Village. The cycle track enters Peebles via this impressive tunnel, but we cut down to the conventional walker's path by the River Tweed, ending up at the Market View coffee shop on Peebles High Street for a second breakfast of coffee and cake. Shortly after this photograph was taken, I unfortunately broke my camera on Peebles High Street, the remainder of the hike into Edinburgh now being captured on my GoPro. My first GoPro photograph shows this view back over to Peebles. The GoPro camera takes wonderful wide-angle pictures, but background features look way in the distance. In this case, as you can see, the Pentlands are almost invisible. The trail from Peebles to West Linton skirts Hamilton Hill, following Cross Borders Drove Road, and weather could not have been more perfect. Crossing expansive farm fields into Cloy Forest finally gave Nigel a chance to test drive the hiking poles.
I'm a walking aristocrat. It's a beautiful part of the day. This is day 4. Just walking out of Peebles on the way to West Linton. First, look at bright blue sky. Good 14 hours.
The track leads down to Flemington Burn before ascending onto open moorland on Green Knowe and Drum Maw. Again, as you can see, the weather was picture perfect all day.
Quite impressive indeed.
Emerging from a small forestry plantation, we caught our first views of the Pentland Hills. Of course, the Pentlands are familiar hills of hame for local Edinburgh lads like Nigel and myself. After a brief diversion to climb up Broomlee Hill, we eventually arrived at the Gordon Arms Hotel in West Linton. Here, Warren joined us for our evening meal, and I think Nigel looks ready for a nap. Day 5, and walking across the Pentland Hills beckoned as we concluded this first section of the Scottish National Trail. Another beautiful morning in West Linton, starting out from the Gordon Arms Hotel.
Well, today Nigel and I are walking along Old Roman Road towards Carlops. A beautiful sunny day, as you can see. Morning, Nigel. He is we're looking at the last stage, going into Edinburgh today.
Crossing Heather Moorland from Carlops eventually leads to the Pentland watershed and views down into the Forth Valley.
Looking down to Kirkstoffer Hill, in the distance you can see the Forth rail and two road bridges straight ahead. And over to the left, looking up at the west, over to the Campsies. It's a beautiful vista back up to the mount. Again, there's our signpost. That's where we've come from. Again, where we are going.
Arriving in Balerno early, Nigel and I enjoyed a delicious Chinese curry for lunch at the Grey Horse Inn while waiting for our walking companions, Bill Thompson on the right, John Glenn to his right, and John Sutherland in the middle. These gentlemen were all good walking friends of my father and joined us for the next section, the Water of Leith Walkway, which begins in Balerno. Bob Cant, standing beside Nigel, is a friend who planned to walk with us all the way into Slateford. It is nice that I've kept in touch with Bill Thompson, John Glenn and John Sutherland since my father, Angus Mitchell, passed 5 years ago, and it was kind of them to support my hike along the old railway between Balerno and Collinton that Friday afternoon. The trail passes Collinton Parish Cemetery, where my mother Muriel Mitchell is buried, so I had the opportunity to stop by and pay my respects.
So here we are at Mum's gravesite on our way down to Slateford, last part of this section of the Scottish National Trail. Beautiful Collinton Parish Cemetery.
Beyond the church, the walk descends into the beautiful Collinton Dell, where the Water of Leith has transformed over the years from a polluted industrial river into a verdant nature preserve. It's also a great location to take selfies. Of course, our walk into Slateford and the Water of Leith Visitor Centre would not have been complete without some afternoon rain showers.
Nigel complaining and whinging all the way through.
I've had enough, and now it's raining.
Yes, thank God for Slateford.
Yeah.
Just in time. Oh, well done, Nigel.
Well done, me. Oh, whistle for me.
Well done. Applause for Nigel.
Some sort of badge, an award maybe?
That's right.
Some kind of sash I can wear.
Yes.
Certificates in the post.
A choir of hosannas for Nigel.
Palm leaves.
Yeah, where's your donkey?
I had it for one.
There you go. Congratulations, end of the line. Time for a scone. And look, it's closed. That's right. Have you been here? Alright, well, congratulations. Here we go.
As the official end to the border section of the Scottish National Trail, the Water of Leith Visitor Centre also marked the end of Nigel's hike, having walked with me all the way from Kirk, Yetholm. 3 years ago, the Visitor Centre played host to the official opening ceremony of the Scottish National Trail, commemorated by this plaque. Except, of course, this was not the end of the line quite yet. The path into Edinburgh city centre continued along the Water of Leith. Nigel cut off at Roseburn Park across from Murrayfield Stadium, while I followed this silver thread in a ribbon of green, and its many weirs, down to the Dean village before heading into Edinburgh town centre and a bed at the Smart City Hostel on Blackfriars Street, just off the Royal Mile.